Hello everyone, welcome to this week's lesson. Today I'm continuing a series of lessons that focus on the book, The Four Agreements. And this week's lesson, well, it's titled, Don't Take Anything Personally, Part 1. So as you can probably tell, there's a whole lot that needs to be looked at and discussed, examined, and to see how it can apply to our lives. Scripture today that I'm sharing with you is Luke 6, the 41st and the 42nd verse. And it reads, "Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eyes, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, 'Friend, let me take out the speck in your eye,' when you yourself do not see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye." Second scripture today is Colossians 3:13, and it reads, "Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other, just as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive." Our wisdom quote for today is, I have two of them. The first one is from Paul J. Alessi, and he writes, "There are two sides to every story, and the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle." And then an African proverb, "Until the lion learns to write, every story will always glorify the hunter." Now, I'm pretty sure all of you remember the four agreements, but just in case you need a little refresher, I have changed the order of this, but you'll understand why. The first one is be impeccable with your word. The next one is don't make assumptions. The next one would be always do your best. And lastly, don't take anything personally. Now, last week I spoke about the reality that our words are seeds planted in the soil of consciousness. The first agreement teaches us about the power and proper use of our own words, whereas the second agreement, don't take anything personally, gives us a kind of immunity to the words and actions of others. Listen to what I said. I'm very clear with my words. Give us a kind of immunity to the words and actions of others. Now, during this lesson, we are going to explore several viewpoints in regard to this agreement. As with anything, we must remain mindful that we live in a relative world, a world of thought and emotions that shift in many directions according to how we have chosen to view and how we choose to participate. The second agreement states, don't take anything personally. Whatever happens around you, don't take it personally. It is all very simple. If you worry about other people's opinions, you are hurt by what others say about you. If you take personally what others say and do, you put yourself in a position to be wounded. If you don't take anything personally, the words and actions of others can no longer hurt you. You have a so-called shield that protects you. Listen to my words. You have a so-called shield that protects you. Don Miguel states, immunity to poison in the middle of hell is the gift of this agreement. Even after you master the second agreement, the poison will still be out there. People will continue to gossip about you and go against you. The arrows will still be flying. The difference is that they will no longer get under your skin. They will no longer affect your feelings. When you no longer take things personally, you will no longer be wounded, even in the midst of a battle. Now, there is a wonderful Chinese proverb that I like to say, and it is, when your feet hurt, you can either cover the whole earth with leather or wear shoes. Most of us have symbolically covered the earth with leather. We spend an incredible amount of time and energy just trying to make our outer environment safe, hoping that people won't say or do things that are hurtful to us. Yet, we seldom realize that every day we are doing exactly what we do not want others to do to us. We make huge, huge efforts to change others in order to avoid being wounded, in order to stay, quote unquote, safe, and so that we do not have to change. The latter is a tricky way of the way the ego functions. It will keep you, in your mind, justified and superior. But the challenge is, in the world of absolute truth, we are not justified nor superior. We are all equal. There is no separation. And what is the result in trying to remain safe and feeling superior, when usually find ourselves disappointed? In spite of all of our efforts, others still manage to do or to say things that hurt us. Why not learn not to take things personally? Now, I have to stop here and say this. If you have an emotional reaction to what someone says, then there is something inside you that needs to be looked at and healed. We're going to explore some of that later on in this series. So, why do we take things personally anyway? We take things personally because we are in a so-called trap of personal importance. Think about what I just said. What is this saying to you? We take things personally because we are in a so-called trap of personal importance. Personal importance is when we make the assumption, hear that word, assumption, that everything revolves around me. Me, 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 me. Everything evolves and revolves around me. Now, when we observe the egocentric world of me, we come to understand it as a way of being selfish or selfishness. The more selfish we are, the farther away we get from our source. The best life that one can create comes into existence when we are mentally and emotionally in balance. If one is leaning in mind toward any extreme, you are creating conflict. Conflict can only be resolved from the position of viewing the validity of both sides and finding common ground somewhere in the middle. The Buddha probably has the best way of explaining what balance is. He taught that there is a middle way, the path that lives between extremes. He asserted that the middle way is neither a path of denial nor of affirmation. It reveals to us the paradox of the universe within our own thoughts and in the physical world. The middle way teaches us how to be in the world, but not of the world. There is a middle way between the extremes of indulgence and self-denial, free from sorrow and suffering. This is the way to peace, liberation in this very life. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of the author Joel Goldsmith. He was an American spiritual author. He was a teacher. He had no formal religious background, but he became a spiritual healer and a modern-day mystic, and founded a group called the Infinite Way. In the latter part of his life, he received the call from within to lift students out of the metaphysical level of consciousness that focuses on understanding the mental and emotional worlds of opposites into the world of a mystic or the mystical. From this level of consciousness, we understand that this is what Jesus had embodied, and from that is how the miracles happened. Goldsmith did a series of lectures which were then translated and made into the book Beyond Words and Thoughts. This book sets forth a way that leads to living in oneness with all that is. In other words, living in the middle. You see, in God, there is no dualism. Dualism only exists in our mind, in our world, the world of thought stemming from our beliefs in separation. The separation in this case would be you and me rather than we. Now, Goldsmith's teachings reveals what the Buddha also had said, that there is a world beyond our words and thoughts. It is from this world we are not subject to the things of the world, but rather we can live in a world, but not of the world. When you live in a selfish extreme, take a look and see if that's ever happened to you. You set yourself up to take things personally. In this extreme, one begins to think they are responsible for everything. Does that sound familiar? Now, how about when one gets into a mental and emotional selfish extreme that tells the ego everyone else should be in alignment with what your ego thinks, says, and does? Now, in the relative world of opposites, there is always a flip side. When you live in a selfless extreme, you distance yourself from what you personally need to stay in balance. They push and give of themselves until there is absolutely nothing left, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Does that sound familiar? I cannot tell you how many times I have met with people living in one extreme or the other. No matter what extreme or conflict that is going on within them and in their world, the solution is always to come back to center. Coming from our center is the presence of God. Divine wisdom reveals to us that nothing other people do is because of you. They are merely reacting from where they are presently in consciousness. They can only see from their viewpoint. Now here's the kicker. That same holds true for you. You can only see from your viewpoint. Now, everyone lives in their own mental and emotional worlds. No question about it. It's part about being human. Everyone lives in a different world, according to consciousness, from the one that you live in. What other people see is merely a mirror reflection of their own state of consciousness. They will tell you what they think they would do in this situation. It's not that they will do it, but they think that this is the answer. Again, see how these expressions of thought reveals their consciousness. It has very, very, very little to do with you. They can only see from their viewpoint. And again, the same holds true about you. So when you take something personally, you have made an assumption that the other person knows everything about you and your situation. And the truth is, they don't. They can only see the world from their own point of view, just like you can only see the world from your personal point of view. Again, what others think has very little to do with you. Now, Ruiz says, even when a situation seems so personal, even if others insult you directly, it really has nothing to do with you. What they say, what they do, and their opinions they give are according to the agreements they have in their own minds about their own life. Their point of view comes from all of the programming they have received during their life. The same holds true for you. Taking things personally makes you easy prey. Those who are expressing from a purely selfish extreme will try and hook you one way or another through selfishness, self-serving words, with no regard to where you may be in your own journey. This is where selfishness hurts others. Now, the other evening, Tina and I were watching House Hunters. We watch that show a whole lot because there's not a whole lot on television that is of interest to us. So anyway, I decided and I made a choice to just observe a couple who were looking for a new home rather than me engaging in what I would like. It was truly fascinating and it was interesting as to what I witnessed and how I interpreted the whole story. The husband was a realtor and looked for properties that he thought they both would like and what they could afford. As the show progressed, I observed the wife was unwilling to listen to what her husband was saying and did nothing but insult him and find fault in every house he showed her. Since she did not like anything that he showed her, she went behind his back and contacted another realtor to find her what she wanted, with no regard to what his needs and wants and desires may be. In other words, she dismissed him. Have you ever been dismissed? Have you ever dismissed somebody? If you have felt what it is like to be dismissed, how did that feel? Now back to the story. When the wife found a house she liked, she called him and literally demanded he come and see what she had found. This is what selfishness looks like. He had no idea at that point until he got that phone call that she had even contacted another realtor. He found out when she called him and told him he had to come take a look. Imagine how he must have felt. Now here's the kicker. Truthfully, you can't. You can only imagine from how you would have felt being dismissed. Now take a deep breath. When someone gives you their opinion, which is pretty much what everybody does, including you and me, you do not have to take their opinion as gospel. And remember, they do not have to take your opinions as being their gospel either. I suggest that you work to get yourself to the point where you can easily realize that what they are sharing is a reflection of where they currently are in consciousness. It will change. It is helpful to realize what they are sharing is just their current viewpoint, and it's not necessarily the truth. For most, when we take things personally, we may feel offended and hurt. And from that point, we will have a tendency to defend our beliefs and create conflicts. You end up making something really, really, really big out of something that is really very small. When I find myself getting caught up in a conflict, I have a saying I use a whole lot, more than I would like to, but anyway, I still use this a lot, which helps keep me grounded and balanced. The words I use are intentionally chosen, and they are, it is only a problem if you make it a problem, unquote. It is only a problem if you make it a problem. Now just take a minute, and I want you to write down those exact words. It is only a problem if I make it a problem. Being impeccable with your words will help you to live without a whole lot of drama and living more from the middle. So, if you find yourself in the midst of a conflict, stop, step back, check yourself, and see if you have taken something someone said or does personally. By doing that simple exercise, it will create a space for you to realize there are other choices that you can make that will create a different outcome. We have come to the end of today's lesson, and I know what I have shared is a whole lot to digest. So, this is my suggestion. I suggest you review the lesson several times. Just play it over several times. And just see what, if any of it, applies to you. And if it does, join me next week as we will attempt to understand why we take things personally and what we can do to release us from its spell. Now, if today's lesson doesn't speak to you, I want you to know that's okay too. Remember, your life is all about how you see it, not how somebody else sees it. I want to take a moment now just to thank you for tuning in today. It is truly an honor that you would do that. And I also want to give a very special thanks to all of you who continue to support our ministry. Your ongoing prayers and your financial contributions are truly necessary to keep us operating. If you care to contribute in a financial way, you can send your tithe or gift to Unity Life Enrichment Center, 10417 South Orange Blossom Boulevard, Sebring, Florida, 33875. You can make your check out to Unity or Unity Life Enrichment Center and send it to 10417 South Orange Blossom Boulevard, Sebring, Florida, 33875. Also, right below this video, we have made it possible for you to give online. If you have a prayer request, simply call the office. Our number is 863-471-1122 and leave your message, your prayer request. Messages are checked daily. Be assured your request will remain confidential. If you wish, you can also send your prayer request and any comments or questions about this lesson via email. Our email address is unitysebring@gmail.com. That's unitysebring@gmail.com. Now you may also call Silent Unity at 1-800-669-7729 for a live one-on-one person to pray with you. If you are on Facebook, you are invited to join me and Adam Abbott on Sunday morning around 10:30 a.m. on our Facebook page. There you can join us in a time of meditation and prayer. If you have not yet liked our Facebook page, please do so now. The link to the Like Us is to the right of this video. Select the link and you will have access to us on your own Facebook page. Our Board of Trustees has sought Spirit's guidance, and once again, Spirit's directive is to wait yet another week to reopen. With that, the center will remain closed through at least August 9th. Pray that this all goes, we get beyond this. See us beyond this. Please know that the board will continue to seek Spirit's guidance each week as to what actions we are to take for the overall good of everyone in our congregation. I personally ask each of you to pray for every soul that has contracted COVID-19, the COVID-19 virus. I invite for you to see the light of God moving in and through them now, restoring them to wholeness. Surround their loved ones and families and friends and the frontline workers in your prayers as well. See them as having a revelation that God is within them as they sojourn forth, knowing that they are loved, appreciated, and supported. With continuing high numbers of positive cases in our area being reported here and around the state, I invite for you to please see everyone taking every necessary precaution to remain healthy, whether they believe this is a hoax or not. Please see people realizing that wearing a mask is an act of compassion and love toward themselves and others. Let us be the ones who show the way by wearing a mask, by practicing social distancing, washing our hands, and holding the high watch, knowing that with God we will move through this together as one with ease and with grace. This, my friends, is how you can be a channel of God's love into the world. So until we meet again, I affirm that you are whole and healthy. I affirm you and I continue to spread the love and the joy of God within, with everyone you think about and meet. Peace, be still, go within, and bye for now.